2, 1. Let's go. Welcome to the Fiction Addiction Podcast, a podcast where we go one-on-one with fiction creators, such as authors, filmmakers, actors, songwriters, and more. Each episode, we get the inside scoop on our guests' creative process, the ups and downs of their industries, and our guests also give out tips and tricks that help them become successful. And now, let's jump into the episode with your host, Chris C.L. Lowry.
All right. You're tuned into the Fiction Addiction Podcast. My next guest has short and flash fiction that is either featured or upcoming in Lite Lit One, the Drabble, Bewildering Stories, Teleport Magazine, and Rogue Blades Entertainment Omnibus, As You Wish. She wears a ton of hats, including being a mother, wife, engineer, United States Air Force veteran, reservist, 4-time All-American fencer, 100-mile ultramarathoner, triathlete, world traveler, reader, super nerd. She lives in Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, Hayley Reese Chow. Hayley, what is going on? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You got a lot of hats.
Oh yeah.
So let's dive into some of those. So you live in Florida with your family, 2 boys and your husband.
That's right. Yes, I got a 1-year-old and 3-year-old.
Whoa, there you go. See, now, how do you get things done in terms of writing with a 1-year-old and 3-year-old?
Oh gosh, very patiently and in small baby steps. So I try not to, be distracted when I'm around them. And if I'm thinking about writing, I'm definitely distracted. So I try to save most of my creativity for the hours of like 7:30 to 9:30 in the evenings. It doesn't always work out. I mean, it creeps into the pauses in the day. I can't really keep the thoughts at bay all the time, but
right.
Every night I'm at it. And, I just try to be really patient with my goals. I'm all about perseverance. So I keep at it every day and eventually I get there.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So engineering, what got you into engineering?
Oh gosh, it seems kind of like it's like a family thing, really. I have 3 older sisters, and we're all engineers. So by the time I got around, I was like, this seems like it works for everyone. So I guess I'll give it a shot. And to be honest, I got a full scholarship for engineering to go to Notre Dame, so it paid my way through school, which was really awesome. I think I'm actually probably the least engineer. I mean, if you're going to ask me about the technical parts of a car or anything like that, I cannot help you. I'm much more of a words than a numbers person, but they let me pass somehow. So I do enjoy the engineering work that I do, but it's a different world.
Now, did you know you were going to get that scholarship?
So my sisters, like I said, I have 2 older sisters. I have 3 older sisters. They're all engineers. 2 of them went ROTC in college, and through ROTC they also got ROTC scholarships and athletic scholarships. So I kind of followed in their footsteps, and I was like, I really want to get a scholarship too. So I think I'm going to go that route. And so I applied, and it just really worked out. I'm so grateful. So ROTC gave me the scholarship, and I also got partial fencing scholarship. So I was really fortunate.
Wow, that's amazing. So the ROTC also help mold your path into going into the military?
Yes, ROTC is the Reserve Officer Training Corps, and it basically works. A lot of times they pay your tuition, and then you have a 4-year commitment after you get out of school to go into the service and be an officer. So that's how that works.
So then you got, on top of all that, you also you have all the athletic accolades. You have the 4-time All-American fencer, ultramarathoner, triathlete. So how'd you get into all those things?
One at a time, really. So I started fencing when I was 12. I just thought it would be an interesting thing to try out. And I lived in Louisville at the time with my parents. And there just happened to be a really great fencing club in the local area. I went and tried it out. And the Polish Olympic coach had come over, and he was teaching kids how to fence. And just so happened that I had a knack for it. I kept at it. And I did the national circuit for several years, and then I started fencing internationally in high school. I made the under 16 world championships team when I was in high school, and then I got recruited to go fence at Notre Dame. So that was, wow. And they had a great team. I mean, I fenced with the Olympians, Garrick Meinhardt, Kelly and Courtney Hurley. So they're all medalists now. I mean, it's just an amazing team. And I was really fortunate to be a part of that team. And my senior year, we won the national championship, which was amazing. And also throughout, I got every year I get to go to NCAAs, and I managed to become an All-American. So yeah, so
that's amazing.
a lot of time, and a lot of hard work really paid off there in the end. Oh, and then so that was fencing. So that was chapter 1, right? so then when I got out of school, so when I finally finished fencing, it had taken up so much time. I mean, I 10 years of my life totally dedicated really to fencing. Like every evening I was in the gym, and all the weekends I was at tournaments. I really wanted to do something different. I was like, I love fencing. It was great. I learned so much, but now I'm ready for my next chapter. But I'm used to being busy, right? I have to do something. So I started to run, and I really fell in love with running, but I'm not fast. I'm so slow. So I was like, what am I going to do? It's so slow. But you know what? I can keep running. So I did a half marathon, and I was like, oh, wow, that was amazing. What an incredible, empowering experience. But I'll never do a marathon. That's for crazy people, And then I was like, I think I could do this, actually. I could do that. So I ran a marathon. And then after I ran the marathon, I saw that Disney World does it was called the Goofy Challenge at the time, where you run a half marathon the first day and a marathon the second day. And I was like, if I go really slow, I bet I can do that. So I gave it a shot, and I did that. And then I read this article, and the article said, if you can run, basically 10 miles on day 1 and 20 miles on day 2, you could run 30 miles if you tried. I was like, well, that's interesting. I was like, so maybe I could run 50 miles, maybe I'll give it a shot, and tried it out, made it. And at that point I was like, I wonder how far I could go. I really wanted to find my limit, what's the boundary of this? So I did 100K, and then I tried the 100-mile, and I will tell you, the 100-mile was my limit. I finished, but it was painful. It was rough. Really? Yes. Oh man, staying up through the night was a tough competition. So I was really, ultramarathons were awesome. Also, that was a very interesting period of self-discovery and about mental strength and how far people can really go. But once again, that's kind of a chapter that, we're turning the page again. And when I moved down to Florida, there's a lot of triathlons around here. And so I got into that, and I did a half Ironman a couple years ago, which was really awesome. And one day I hope to do an Ironman, but that's kind of in the future still. I need a little more time to train up for that. So that's where all that comes in.
Wow, that is amazing. So doing all that, when did you find time to start writing?
So writing was another thing that just kind of almost, it happened so fortuitously, I guess. When I graduated from college, I knew I was going to go active duty, but they couldn't tell me when. They basically said, well, you're going to go active duty sometime between graduation and next year, but we don't know when, but be ready to go at any time. And so I really was kind of left hanging. I was like, oh, well, what do I do? So actually I went home to my parents, and actually I got out of the car, and my mom was like, oh, welcome home. And I actually started to cry. It was like, no, I don't want to come home. I'm supposed to spread my wings and, go out into the world. And here I am back at home. So I was kind of like, I got a part-time job, and I just didn't know what to do with myself, And my dad, he just got so tired of me moping around. He's like, you know what? You have time right now. Create something. And that was like a light bulb for me. I had been doing all of these things. I'd been fencing, and I'd been running, and I do engineering, but I had never really thought about exploring that creative side of myself. And it just was like, you're right. You are 100% right. So, and I had been reading so much that words were just coming out of my ears, it seemed like, but I had this dissatisfaction that I felt like I couldn't find the story that I was looking for. So I was like, man, I'm going to write it. I'm going to write the story that I want to read. And, so it took me about 3 months. And it actually worked out that just as I was wrapping up, it was time to go active duty. So I got my orders, and I almost closed the book on that. I actually did for a long time. I was like, you know what? I wrote a book. That was enough. So I was actually 22, and I was like, that's that one chapter that I'm done with, and I'm going to start my career. And I had to get my master's. I had a lot of other stuff that I needed to do. So, that was nice, but I think I'm done with that for now. And so that's when I got my master's, and I started the ultramarathoning, and I started my career. I met my husband. I started a family, and then I started to slow down again. I came to another almost pause in my life where I was wondering what I should do. Like, what should I do next? And my mom has kept reminding me about the book. Oh, what about the book? The book you wrote. And I was like, Mom, it's not good enough. I don't want to do anything with that. But I picked it up again. I picked it up and I read it, and I said, you know what? This isn't so bad. I need help. It's the first draft. Let's give it that. But I think this, I still love this. I still love this story, and I think I want to work on this. And so that was that was right after my son was born in 2016 when I started to do that. And from there, I revised it, and I was like, I'm going to try to give this a shot. And I sent it out to agents thinking, well, I'm never going to hear back or anything. So I'm just going to send this out in the void once again, just to say I did it. I'm a huge person that just loves saying I did it. usually that's like enough for me to check that box. I love checking boxes. I had a full request in 24 hours. And that was kind of like a, whoa, someone else thinks that this might be good, And that's when I really was like, all right, I'm going to explore this, And I found the writing community on Twitter, and they sucked me in, and I have never looked back.
Wow.
So,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you started going down that path, was that the path you always wanted to do, go the traditional publishing route?
It's the only path I really knew about. Well, I knew about self-publishing, but I didn't know any of the how, So I had my dad, he had actually written a short story a long, long time ago, but he had kind of mentored me, pick up this book, that has all this list of agents and publishers, and, just send it out and see what happens. So that's the only thing I knew about at the time. So that's what I tried first, because I figured, why not? Give it my best shot.
So that story, was that the short fan fiction, the one you completed, or was that the novel that you're coming out with in March?
That's the novel. That's Odril's Heirs that comes out in March. So that's the book baby.
So, the other fan fiction and flash fiction, how did that come about? How did you reach out to those platforms, or did they reach out to you?
So I wrote Odriel's Heirs and I revised it, and then I started sending it out to agents, and a lot of them came back saying, this I like it, but it's just not quite right for us. So I was getting a little discouraged, and I was having my second son, and I just didn't have the energy. I was pregnant, and then I had a newborn, and I was like, I can't, I don't have enough focus and energy to really work on a full-size novel right now, because to work on a novel, it requires so much. You have to keep so much in your mind. You basically have to hold the whole book in your head as you revise, and I couldn't do it. But I had been reading some books about, specifically I had been reading Stephen King's On Writing and some other writing craft books to try to help myself, since I'm a brand new writer, very new. And just Stephen King had said, I started out writing short stories, and I just kept writing. And I thought, that's what I need to do. I love, in high school, I loved writing short stories. And so I was like, I know, that's something I could do and something that I could enjoy. And it's short, I could actually write a short story maybe on my phone while I'm here holding this baby. So, and that's what I did. I wrote my 3 short stories. I wrote The Third Eye, Wild Demand, and Saving Sloane, pretty much all while I was holding my son. And then I sent those out. But actually, I waited to send those. Those out. So I wrote them, and then once again, I just wasn't feeling confident about it. I was like, I'm not sure if this is the quality that people will want. Where do I send it? And so I waited, and then I started to write flash fiction. I found these photo prompts where you write 100 word stories, which was really cool. And I started posting those online, and people actually responded really positively to them. And I was like, oh, wow, people like my writing? This is new for you. This is new for me. This is interesting. And so actually I started sending out my flash fiction, I think, first, and it was accepted. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. I could, maybe there are people who would like to read this. And that's when last May is when I finally sent out my first short story, and got it accepted. It was the Third Eye, accepted by Teleport Magazine, and that was a huge day for me. That really gave me confidence going forward about putting my work out there. And all 3 of those short stories I wrote on maternity leave found homes, and then I started writing more flash fiction, and those found homes, and then I finally was like, this novel has got to go. It is like a 60-year-old man that still lives with his parents, that are 90 years old. We need to kick this one out the door. So that's when I really started looking into self-publishing.
So how has that journey been?
Amazing, actually. So the querying process is so mentally hard, because you send out your, your queries, and then you wait, you're like refreshing your inbox, hoping something will be there. And if you're lucky, you get some full requests, which I was fortunate enough. I got a few full requests, and then it's another waiting game. It's like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. It's like, okay, this is a difficult waiting game. And then you get the response, oh, this is good, but just not right for us. Or, I really enjoyed it, but I just don't think it's unique enough to sell, or something other that's kind of nice, but also not super helpful. And then you have the people that just never respond, so you're thinking, well, maybe should I wait some more, or should I just call it quits? Right. So that was really hard. And I thought when I moved to self-publishing, it would feel like giving up. I thought, this is me admitting defeat, I guess. But then when I actually started to look into it, And I started to, I took the first step. I was like, you know what, I'm going to get a cover. Because even if I do, you know, get published or something, it would be cool to have a cover, you know, that the cover that I wanted. And so I moved forward with that, and it actually felt awesome. I was like, wow, I have a lot of power, you know, I have all the control. I can get this cover. And then I started looking I reached out to the writing community on Twitter and Instagram and started asking for help. You know, how do you do this? I know a lot of amazing indie authors out there do this, but, you know, could you give me some advice? And they pointed me towards the Reedsy blog, and they pointed me towards Amazon, Kindle Direct. And when I started looking into that, I was like, wow, this is actually like pretty easy. This is doable. I can do this. And so I started uploading, and then I looked into formatting, you know, and I started doing the formatting part. And then the possibilities just seemed to open up in front of me. It was like, I can commission an audiobook, like through Amazon ACX. Wow. Like I never thought I could do something like that. I could get this in print. Like, I can make an actual hard copy book. And then, so I was like, I have the power. And that it just felt so freeing. I mean, it was so amazing to have some closure in sight. And I felt like I really did. I believed in my book. You know what I mean? I had always received positive feedback about it, even from the publishers and agents. So I felt pretty good about it. But it really was incredible to put it in motion, to finally like get it off that holding pattern. And we're going somewhere. This is happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So when you were going through that middle phase of the queries and before you got to self-publishing, what kept you motivated? You know what I mean? Like you mentioned, you're waiting, you're refreshing the browser. What stopped you from giving up at that point?
You know, that one's tough. Perseverance is my number one motto, or my number one, that is my go-to. Just, it's what drives me, you know, like when like I said, I'm not fast. I am not the fastest runner, but I can keep running. And even when I was a fencer, you know, I may not be the most talented fencer out here, but I can wear you down. I am tenacious. I am not the kind that gives up easily. And it is tough. I mean, you would have on those days where you would get especially a full manuscript rejection. It just takes the wind out of your sails. And I did, but you know, it's funny. I think too, the writing community, I feel like actually really saved me. Because they're I saw people going through the same thing, you know, a lot of people who have the same love of writing and reading, just going through the same process. And I really felt the support from them that, you know, it's okay. You know, it's okay. Today is a bad day, but tomorrow could be better. You know,
absolutely. I
don't know. And someone actually posted something on my Twitter that really was another one of those light bulb moments. And I think it's a Banksy quote, and it's learn to rest, not quit. And that just resonated with me. I was like, you know what? That's absolutely right. Because so what if I take a week off of writing? So what if I take a month off of writing? I can always come back. Just because you have to take a break does not mean that you have to quit. You know, so you can always come back to it. So right. that really kept me going. And honestly, I kept writing during the query process. Once I had gotten into kind of the writing community, I started doing the November NaNoWriMo, the National Writing Month. And I kept writing, and I just loved it. You know, even if I didn't publish, I knew that I loved writing the story, and writing the story for me was my number one objective. So, you know, publishing, meh. I'm still, the jury's still out, but writing always. So that's kind of where I am with that.
So you had this story. Obviously, you mentioned you created it years ago, and then you continued it, and it was always there. Your family was asking you about it. How were you able to decide what type of cover you wanted for such a milestone of a story for you? You know what I mean? It's number one. It has years behind it. How did you know what the cover design was going to be? And did you choose a cover designer, or did you create it yourself?
I chose the cover design. I got a tip from someone on Twitter saying, hey, this is my cover, and this is actually my cover designer's name is Dominique Wesson. She is amazing. I looked through her stuff and I was like, it's got to be her. She has amazing work. And when I saw her work, I kind of had the image in mind of my two main characters are they're foils of each other to a certain respect, and one, it has the power of fire and the other of shadow. So I knew I wanted to have both of those displayed, almost kind of splitting the book, splitting the cover in half. And I'm so excited to share it with everyone. It's amazing.
So what was that process like in terms of your ideas? Did she get your idea right away, or was it a little bit of work in terms of working with each other?
She did. I think it was definitely both. I emailed her originally. I was like, okay, so I've never done this before, so this is what I'm thinking. And then I wrote her like a tome, this huge monologue of this is what they're like. This is what I think they look like. This is their personality, and because I really, of course, I would love for her to be able to read my mind and see what I'm seeing. But also, as she as the artist also has that, it's her interpretation too, you know what I mean? Which is really super important, I feel, in the artwork. And she did an awesome job. I mean, when I saw it, I was, my breath taken away. I was just in love with what she had created. And I mean, I had little things here and there, but they were so small. I'm sure she probably laughed, about just the little details. So we worked on the little details, but she definitely had the intent. She knew what I was going for. So that was really cool to connect on that level, because I am a huge fan of the visual arts, and I do not have a whole lot of talent in that arena. To see the novel bridging that gap kind of a little bit was amazing.
So do you have a writing setup, like a weird writing ritual, or is it pretty regular?
A little bit. It's funny. I am a binge writer and I'm a binge reader, and I cannot do both at the same time. So I will, if I am writing a novel, I am writing that novel, and there is pretty much nothing that is getting in my way. I mean, my husband has to remind me. He's like, have you drank anything? Have you eaten anything? Like, are you going to sleep in the next week? So that's, when I'm in the writing mode, it is like a burning need to write, but of course we have life, right? So we have the kids, or, sometimes I have to clean the house, or, do chores or school projects or daycare projects, but whatever they need. So it doesn't always work out that way. And then, of course, since I am an independent author, or soon to be independent author, there is a lot of things that I have to do that have nothing to do at all with writing. I have like the formatting, or reviewing and editing, and sending it out to advanced reviewers, trying to market. So I am wearing all of those hats too. So I don't always get to write when I'm fulfilling those other roles. So when I'm not writing, when I'm not actually drafting a novel, I try to do the one-word prompts on Twitter and Instagram. I really like how those force me to be very judicious in my word choice with their character limits. I feel like it's really strengthened the punch of my words, trying to really refine those little story bites, I guess you could say. So it's funny because those have actually also blossomed into larger works too. So I've written another novel since I've actually written 2 novels since I wrote O'Drill's Heirs, and one of them actually came from one of those little itty bitty, very short stories that I wrote on Twitter.
Really?
And actually, and one of my other short stories, it's called Hidden in the Deep. It's going to be published soon with the free bundle. It actually also came from a little picture prompt on Twitter. So I find that as an excellent source of inspiration and just like a creativity exercise. So when I'm not actually in the drafting mode, I'm still exercising those kind of little writing exercises to try to keep myself sharp. So a lot of nights, my nights start off with one of those little prompts, and usually I'll move on, to other things. But that's kind of the little writing ritual I have when I'm not on fire with words, I guess you could say.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of the Fiction Addiction Podcast by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
So, O'Drill's Heirs, what genre does that fall under?
Young adult fantasy, my favorite.
Young adult fantasy. So, what made you choose to write in that genre for your first book?
Oh my gosh, I love young adult fantasy so much. I really fell in love with reading when I was around middle school age, and I loved fantasy. I loved Garth Nix. Harry Potter. Chronicles of Narnia. I love going into a different world. Lord of the Rings. Gosh, there's so many. Avatar: The Last Airbender, I could go on forever. And I just craved it. I could not get enough, I love the young adult genre because I just love how much I love seeing a world from a young person's eyes. Everything seems so new and kind of frightening still, so the reader is almost learning with the main character about what is this world? What is this place? So I really love that perspective. And I love how much a young adult main character has room to grow and change. They really, as they're discovering this world, what does it do to them? How much of a different person are they on the other side? So oh my gosh, I'm in love with that. And like I said, when I was working part-time and hanging out at my parents' house, I read so much young adult fantasy. I was like, I want to do this. I have this story spooling in my head. I have to get it out. And I still read it sometimes. And I think to myself, even if no one else likes this, I love that. I love this story. This story was for basically 13 or 14-year-old me. You know what I mean? I wrote it for me, definitely. So it holds a special place in my heart, and I'm excited to see what other people think too.
Now, are there any other genres that you feel passionate about when you see yourself writing a novel in?
I love science fiction. So science fiction is my other love that I absolutely just can't get enough of. But I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit intimidated because I just feel one of the things I love about science fiction is just how smart it is. That creativity is just like how I often, when I'm reading good science fiction, I just think, how do they think of that? Just the possibility of that and the unique things that people come up with just blow my mind. So I've done a little bit of short story, two short stories now of some science fiction, but I would love to be able to write a science fiction novel one day. I do have an idea percolating, so I'm excited to give it a shot.
So what point of view, which one do you prefer to write in?
I think for most of my works, I'm a third person kind of girl. I like being close, but not being so close as that I'm skewing you. You know, if I'm speaking in an I, you're getting my slang. You know, you're getting my innermost thoughts that I probably don't want to. I don't want you to know, and I do like that. I like that for something that is very modern. So, like if I don't need to describe the world to you. So if I was to write a contemporary young adult that is set in modern day, I think I would write it in first person because you already know where we are, you know, so I don't need to go out of my way too much to describe this world to you. We're both familiar. But in a fantasy world, I really like third person because it does let me show you what else we're seeing. You know what I mean? It might not seem noteworthy, you know, for the main character because they live there. But for you as the reader, I want to show you the whole picture. I don't just want to, you know, I don't want you to see it straight out of the main character's eyes. And I think that goes for science fiction as well. Unless I have a point, like unless unless there's a very specific reason that I'm going first person, third person is my usual go-to. In fact, and my husband thinks this is silly, sometimes even when I'm going about my normal day, sometimes I'll be like, how would I narrate myself doing this in third person? Which is just,
that's pretty
he makes fun of me all the time.
Yeah, that's interesting because that can even help you as a writer. Like, you know what I mean? Thinking about the everyday narration of your own life.
Right. And I've actually been doing that since I was in 7th grade. I remember telling my teacher that I did that. I think even she thought I was a little odd. I was like, I can't help it. I read so much, everything is in third person.
That's crazy. So what is one tip that you would give an aspiring author out there? Any tip that you think is valuable?
Oh my goodness. I would say, you know, it's funny. I love the musical Hamilton. Love it. And I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is just a genius. And one of the things I saw him say to a reporter about when they had a similar thing is that he said, you know, no matter how good the first draft is, don't underestimate how good, you know, the second or third or fourth draft will be. You know, how much better you can make it. And oh my gosh, that once again, that just like spoke to me. I feel that in my bones because, I mean, like I said, I wrote the first draft and I was like, oh man, I mean, I'm so glad I did this. This was a great accomplishment, but it's just not good. And it wasn't good. It was not good. You know, first drafts are not good. But, you know, that's why you revise. And it's amazing how much better it can become. You know, that's really the first draft is just the seed. You know what I mean? And if you really take the time to really nourish it, you know, it's amazing what can grow out of it. I mean, the story that I'm publishing next month is so different than the one that I originally wrote. I mean, the characters in their core are the same. The theme at its core is the same, but all the little details are just, they've totally almost taken a life of their own. You know, it's the first draft. I was just trying to get it down. I was trying to get the bones, you know, and bones can be good, but they're just bones. You know, you need everything else too. And after I don't know, I don't even know what draft I'm on now, you know, 12, 20, 25. I don't know, but it's a lot. And it has grown so much. It's come so far. It's exciting, even though it's a lot of work, you know, it's a lot of work and it's going to take some time, but it is a very fulfilling journey. And I just want anyone that does it, you know, I have this saying that I tell myself, it's, start, learn, persevere. You know, you're not going to be good when you start, but you can learn anything. And if you hang on, if you are tenacious and you are, you know, in this pursuit and you really believe in it, then you will get better and you will get to where you're wanting to go.
Oh, that's deep. So, Ordriel's Heir. I want to dive into the synopsis right quick.
Yeah, let's go.
This stood out to me. So, it starts off, the brave, burning with fire, harness the dragon's rage.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into, I'm just going to read it.
Go for it.
As the dragon heir, 17-year-old Kaya inherited the power of flame to protect her homeland from a godlike necromancer undead army. But after centuries of peace, the necromancer has faded to myth, and the dragon heir is feared by the people. Persecuted and cast out, Kaya struggles to embrace and control her seemingly useless gift while confined to her family's farm. But when the necromancer's undead terrorizes the land once again, Kaya runs away to join the battle. With the help of her childhood rival, the handsome shadow heir, and a snarky cursed cat, Kaya must figure out how to control both her fire and her confidence in time to save Karia. If she fails, she will sacrifice her family, her new friends, and the enchanting world she has only just begun to see. And time is running out. When I read that, I was like, I need to read this book right now. Like, oh my God. So, synopsis are some authors' worst enemy. How were you able to put together something so beautiful? You know what I mean? And when you, as a synopsis.
Well, first of all, I wish you could see my face right now because I am smiling so big. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much for those kind words. I mean, really. But, I think part of it too is doing all that flash. You know what I mean? When you write flash fiction, every word matters. Everything is intentional, and like, when I'm, it's funny because I write flash and then I revise it. I mean, it's not like I just like, oh yeah, this is good. Even my very short stories that are, 280 characters on Twitter, I revise those, because one word will change a sentence. One word will change a sentence. One sentence will change the idea. You know what I mean? So I feel like that practice really helped me grow and be able to condense it down to, just what is the essence of that we're talking about. And so it really helped me out. And I'm really glad that that you enjoyed the final product. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. When especially the start of it, I was like, oh, wow, what we got going on here. But when you ended it, and I was like, oh, in the enchanting world she has only just begun to see. Think of a 17-year-old girl, and then you're like, and time is running out. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, why you do that to me? So, do you write the synopsis first or after? Like, when did you write yours? Because I know so many authors had so many different styles.
Right. Actually, I write mine. So I wrote mine when I wrote my first query letter, which my first query letter was terrible. In case you're wondering, it was awful. And from there, I was putting together those query packages. I had to write this up, and this was all new to me. Like, write a summary. What is that? Let me Google this. What am I doing here? And so that's when I first did it. And when I really started thinking about it, though, was when I had to write my first Twitter pitches, which at the time Twitter was only 140 characters, and I had to boil it down to a tweet. And that was like, what are we doing here? what can I say in a tweet? How many words is that? Is that like 20 words? And so that was, and I asked an agent. I was like, well, how do you get better at this? How do I? Because there were some amazing pitches. I mean, just in 20 words, someone could capture you. I was like, so I want to do that. How do I do that? And they said, write 50 pitches and pick one. So I did. I was like writing. I wrote it in as many ways as I could possibly think of, and honestly, that really caged me to what I was going for, and at that point I was like, okay, I get where we're going here, and it actually really helped me with my revision, because like, this is where I want to get to. This is it. But I'll have to go back and revise a little bit too, because I don't think I'm exactly meeting where I want to go yet. So I think it was really cool, because the writing a summary was really cool, because it does make you see, step back, get out of the trees and see the forest. That's what writing the summary does. And sometimes seeing the forest is a totally different perspective. And you're like, man, we were in the trees for a while, and then we kind of actually like veered out into this desert that I didn't want to go to, and we need to get back to the trees. So I wrote it after. Now I would definitely write it after my first draft. After my first draft, I think that's a crucial part of my revision stage now is, what does my summary look like? What is my ultimate journey here? And that'll take me into my revision and the changes that I need to make. The first draft is your idea. The summary is your kind of revised roadmap, and then you get back into it.
So your book is based in a location called Okaria. Mm-hmm. So break down that world to me.
Okaria. So Okaria it's my favorite things about so many fantastical places that I've read about, or I've even dreamt about, seen, or maybe even heard in a story. I really wanted to create a place that seemed familiar, and yet like some place that you could walk for a century and still find new and magical things that surprise you. I absolutely wanted this feeling of just total wonder. Like what does this place hold? I wanted a place that still had mystery, and but I also wanted a place that was dangerous, because I love the idea of magic. I'm white. I'm a young adult fantasy nerd. I love magic, but I love that magic has this dark side. It's this powerful force which can be used for good or evil, and I wanted a world that definitely held those both in equal parts. So that's kind of what I wanted to create, and what I wanted Kaya to walk into, and try to navigate on her path.
So how did you know, actually creating the physical drawing of the world? How did you know exactly what you wanted it to look like, how you wanted it to look like, where you wanted certain areas to be?
The map, right? The map was really cool, because there are so many details that go into creating a world and creating a story, and one of them, of course, is especially on a journey like the one that they go on, is where are they going and how long does it take them to get there, and what is this geography look like? And I love maps in general. I think they're really tantalizing, like, all the places we could go. Every time I look at a map, I want to go to all the places, So yeah, creating the map of Okaria was really cool, and I definitely, it's interesting too, because Okaria they get in their journey, they do see a lot of Okaria, but there is so much of Okaria that they don't see, and I think you get that feel on the map. That's kind of what I wanted to show too, is yes, you're seeing this world, but this is just a piece. There is so much more, behind this one story. This is a land of a million stories, so that's also what I wanted to convey to you.
So what do you think is in a writer like yourself in terms of fantasy writing? I know you mentioned it in sci-fi, and as soon as you said it, I'm like, because you say the way sci-fi writers is something special with sci-fi writers, but I think it's also something special with fantasy writers as well, because how do you reach that level of creativity to like create a whole world and like names and character names are so it's so much creativity that goes behind it. What's the driving force behind that?
It's interesting because I think it starts with it's funny because some people will say write what you know, and then all the fantasy writers just laugh. Sure, I'll write what I know. But I think it does start with what you do know. I did start this book based on my experiences, and my experiences not necessarily with, this magical place, but my experiences as being, a young teenager, maybe who seemed a bit younger than everyone else, going out into the world and just being unsure, you know what I mean? Having this, I don't know what's going on right now. What am I supposed to be doing? I have this responsibility to do all these things, and how am I going to do that? And I really wanted to give that to Kaya too, because it's interesting, because I feel like young adult has evolved. I mean, we have so many adults like myself that love to read young adult, and I feel like young adult is actually trending towards being written for those adults that read it, which is not necessarily something that I wanted to write a young adult novel for a young adult. I wanted to write it for someone who was experiencing those same kinds of uncertainties, and kind of coming into a world that they didn't know, and on all the responsibility. I was a fencer, at Notre Dame on the fencing team, and I was one member of a 12-person team. And, you go to the national championships, and there is an expectation that you will perform, and it is heavy. And it may seem trivial to some people, but I mean, to a 17-year-old girl, that fencing is your whole world and everything is riding on you. I mean, that's huge. And if you don't come through, I mean, how the crush that you feel, and especially like the disappointment, from your teammates and your coaches it's an incredible thing to experience. And I think I also gave that to Kaya and her experiences too. And so that's where it started, right? My experiences as an athlete with that responsibility of a team, and my experience as, a young adult going out into a world that I felt was totally brand new to me. And other than that, from there, I feel like I actually even had trouble with it at first in trying to really cultivate my creativity, because I felt like I was bringing in all these things that were familiar. And my dad, who was the first person to read it for me and was kind of my first editor, he really had some great advice, and you need to think bigger, make something new. I want something new, don't give me anything that's been rehashed or that you heard before. This is your world, and I want it to be unique, so he really did encourage me to, just keep thinking, it's like, sure, I've heard of elves and goblins and dwarves, but how could I make these things evolve? What I mean? What if it was like this, or what about this situation? And it's like almost like mixing you're crossing the streams, right? What if I cross the streams of fantasy and create something totally new? And it is something that takes practice. It's not like, it's funny because you think creativity is just something that some people have, but it really is another thing that just the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and it really is an exercise of taking yourself out of this world and putting yourself in a place where everything is possible. So you need to explore, the bounds of possible.
Now, does that create pressure for you as a fantasy writer too? Because you know what I mean. You want to expand someone's imagination as they read the story. Is that pressure on you to push your creativity? Because, like you said, the dwarfs and they have so many type of characters, but to create it in a different way. Do you feel pressure to do that, or would you be okay using some of the standard characteristics they're known for in fantasy?
I think I'd be okay using traditional characters too. I just making sure that you're using them in a new way. It has to be fresh. So you have to be doing something different. But mixing the old and the new can definitely have a new take too. So I think everyone has a different style. And I think everyone has a different taste. So I think if you do what, like I said, for me especially, I'm going to write the story for me. First, and if other people enjoy it too, that's also an incredible feeling. But so writing the story, that feels right and true for you, and fits your style and fits your, the story and the themes that you're going for. I think that's most important. And, and then everything else you can make it fit. You can make it fit. Right. But it just takes some creative rearrangement a lot of times.
So what's your family's reaction to you actually your first novel coming out?
It's hard to gauge sometimes. It's funny. I remember when I started writing. I started writing. And I told my dad, because my dad's a pretty creative person too. And he was like, "Oh, that's good. You're writing, that's awesome." And then I kept at it and he's like, "So what are you writing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm writing a novel." And he was like, "Oh," I think he was thinking that I would start small, like maybe I would write a short story or something, but it was like, no, right. We're going straight for the novel. And, I think that surprised him, and actually, so I come from a family of engineers, so it's a little foreign to them. I think in general, the whole writing thing and kind of the creative side is new for them. So my parents have always been very supportive. I actually didn't tell my sisters until I don't know, probably a year or so ago, and I think they were a little shocked, but very excited. Very excited for me. Like I said, it's not there. I think it's very foreign to them. So they don't really, they're like, they're like, "Oh, that's good." But it's kind of just a hobby, and that's kind of how it was treated, like anything else. So I feel like my biggest supporters, and this may be kind of strange, is actually the writing community on social media.
Absolutely.
Because they get it, they get the like-mindedness. And my husband's awesome. I mean, he will read anything I put in front of him. But there are a lot of times where he comes back and he's like, "Yeah, I read it, but I don't get it." I'm like, "You didn't get it?" And then, because he's an engineer too, and then I'll send it out to some of my writing friends on Twitter, Instagram. They're like, "Oh, no, I totally get where you're going, and maybe this is what you can do to help." Because even sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, can you help me brainstorm?" And he'll be like, "What are we doing?" Like, he's just totally, he's like, right. I don't know how to do this. Where do we start? So they're very supportive in a very non-specific way, I guess you would say. So their encouraging words are good, but I'm so thankful to the writing community for their more specific, "Hey, I think you should change this, and this is where you need help," and that sort of thing.
So what are your feelings? Because March is right around the corner. What are your feelings right now in terms of the launch of the book?
I am so excited. I'm very excited. And so I actually, a month ago, I started sending out advanced reader copies to book bloggers, which was also a huge step for me. And the first review came in, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago. And that was a huge moment. That was, I mean, because it was funny because I told my mom I was doing that, right? I was like, Mom, I'm sending the book out to the book bloggers, and like kind of feeling like I just fed it to the wolves, but we'll see what happens. And she was like, yeah, maybe you should wait until you get a review back before you send it to more. And I was like, Mom, come on. It's going. It is, we're taking this. We're doing it. And yes, I sent it out to a lot. And when those first reviews came back and they were just glowing, I mean, the feedback I got from absolute strangers, right? People I had no connection with that had loved the book was just incredible. And I think at that moment I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Because before then I was nervous. I don't know what people are going to think about it, because I've had my family read it and I hired an editor and stuff, but you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And then once the book bloggers started posting their reviews, I started feeling like, oh my gosh, okay, this is real and it's going to be amazing. So I'm so excited. I feel like, it's funny when I told you about when I did ultramarathoning, when I do fencing and stuff, I always like, well, this is the end of that chapter and this is the next page. But as far as this book release goes, I feel like this is the beginning. It doesn't feel like an end. It doesn't feel like an end of the chapter. This feels like the beginning. And that is an incredible feeling.
So what can we expect after the book launch? What can we expect from you in terms of writing?
Well, I have two books. I have a codenamed Cinderella, and I have The Gatekeeper's Son, which they're about finished with the first drafts of both of those. So I'll be revising those, and actually I'll be working on the sequel to Odriel's Heirs. It's called Idril's Children, and my only question right now is which one of my book children is going to get, number one priority. But in general, it's my goal to publish one book a year. So, I'm definitely hoping, and I think with all this, thinking with all this positive response to Odriel's Heirs that I think I'm going to have to put Idril's Children first, which is super exciting. I could not be more thrilled to be coming back to Okaria and jumping into that story. So I'm planning on an Idril's Children release in 2021. But between here and there, you'll probably see a lot of my flash and a lot of my little short stories on Instagram and Twitter. If you ever take a peek, I do get on my poet vibes too here and there. So lots of different little dabbling, but Idril's Children 2021 is what's going to happen.
So what is a thing? I'm trying to think that is in like the fantasy writer community that you guys know you do intentionally to readers that you get a kick out of, because it seems like crime thriller authors, they truly enjoy killing characters that they know a reader will love. So what's like the fantasy thing of that fantasy writers do?
That's an interesting question. I mean, because I feel like the killing off of like beloved characters is kind of like a writing thing in general. I think I see that all across the board, especially like with the whole Game of Thrones situation going on. I feel like that's definitely rampant in lit right now. But other than that, I mean, the thing I love about fantasy too is it's so wide, right? You have urban fantasy and high fantasy, and you even have like, the science fiction fantasy thing going on. I mean, there is so much. I mean, to have a thing, I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, I feel like every fantasy writer, and maybe most fantasy writers, we all love our magic, right? That is our thing, maybe. We all So we all have some kind of current of magic that's running through our stories. But what that magic is, what it's up to, you know, how you control it or how it controls you, that is completely unique. So I think that is our thing, you know, is what's going on with this magic thing and how does it work here? I think is really runs through our veins a little bit.
So now we're going to jump into a little lightning round.
Oh my. All right. So I'm warmed up. Here we go.
I always say 15 seconds or 30. No, what is it? 30 seconds, but it never goes 30 seconds, man. It always goes over for some reason.
Pressure's on.
So I'll give 2 options. You got to choose one each for lightning round. But whenever you're ready, you let me know.
Okay, I think I'm ready.
Hold on. Let me go get a timer. That'll help. All right. Let me see. I'm going to set it for 30 seconds, even though I know we're going to everybody goes over 30 seconds. All right. So you ready?
Challenge accepted. Yes, I'm ready.
And then I started too soon. I pressed it early.
Oh, so now you're cheating. I see how this works.
Now I gotta reset it. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
All right. I'm ready. Hit me.
Windows or Mac?
Ooh, Windows.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Physical books or ebooks?
Ebooks.
Texting or talking?
Texting.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Pen and paper or laptop?
Laptop.
Standalone or series?
Standalone.
Self-publishing or traditional publishing?
Self-publishing.
All right. I told you we got 45 seconds. I just had to know those last 2. All right. So let's let everybody know where they can find you at, where they can contact you, where they can link up with you, and where they can find your book at on March 1st.
Absolutely. So you can definitely always connect with me on Twitter or Instagram at Hayley Reese Chow. And then I also have a website, HayleyReeseChow.com. And I have an email list if you ever want to find out what's coming up. Don't worry about the spam. I only send it out when I have an actual published work coming out, which isn't very often, but it is coming out 1 March. And you can find it, the paperback and the ebook on Amazon, and then the audiobook should be following around mid-March. So be on the lookout for that too.
All right, Hayley, we appreciate you. Thank you for the amazing interview. You got to join us again.
Yes, and thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Fiction Addiction Podcast. Make sure you visit fictionaddictionpodcast.com for links on everything we talked about today, as well as awesome resources, additional tips, and fiction addiction merchandise.